Now a motion to hear the delegations. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Item A is Kim Evans, Louise Sloan, Andy Henderson, Karen DeFrancesco from the Vancouver Local of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers in regard to the end of door-to-door delivery. The speaker will be Kim Evans, the president of CUPW Vancouver Local, my mom's old union.
Oh.
So, welcome everyone.
Thank you.
Please, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes to make your presentation, and then council may have questions afterwards.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for taking the time today to hear our concerns about the impact that Canada Post plans to eliminate door-to-door delivery will have on our community. We are representatives from Local 846 of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. The other speakers in our delegation that I have with me here today are longtime Burnaby residents, Mr. Andrew Henderson to my left and Ms. Karen DeFrancesco to my right. My name is Kim Evans, and I am the president of Local 846, which is based in Burnaby and represents 3,000 CUPW members who work for Canada Post in the municipalities of Vancouver, Richmond, North Vancouver City and District, West Vancouver, and of course Burnaby. I myself lived in Burnaby for over 20 years, and during that time enjoyed the benefits of home delivery by Canada Post, both as a renter and a homeowner in the city. As with all CUPW representatives, I'm also an employee of Canada Post. I actually have a letter carrier walk that's just a few blocks west of here in Burnaby. Canada Post made a surprise announcement this past December 11th, just after the House of Commons broke for its holiday recess. Without properly consulting the public or municipal governments, they put forward what they called a 5-point plan for the future. The main focus of our presentation to you today is the first point of the plan, which is to replace door-to-door delivery with community mailboxes. Currently, approximately 71% of Canadians now receive some form of home delivery. 34% to single-family homes, 25% to apartments, and 12% to rural driveway mailboxes. If this plan is implemented, we foresee a great number of problems for municipal governments and the citizens that they represent. Recent reports have shown that community mailboxes are a one-stop shop for thieves. A CBC report revealed that there were over 4,800 incidents reported in British Columbia of theft, vandalism, and arson between 2008 and 2013. Now, mail contains not only the obvious valuables, such as items that you've ordered online, but also private information, and the criminal element can exploit this for identity theft and credit card fraud. Public safety can also be an issue. These boxes are not always in locations that are well lit. This can expose people to potential harm when they are forced to pick up their mail. Litter can be seen surrounding these boxes. Unfortunately, some people dispose of unwanted advertisements on the ground. Traffic and environmental issues arise with cars regularly stopping and idling in front of these boxes, as many people frequently drive to pick up their mail. Thus far, these boxes have been placed in new developments. In other words, people knew that they were there when they bought their homes. What will the impact be on property values if they are introduced into established neighborhoods? Whose house is it going in front of? These boxes are not attractive. Most residents are unlikely to want them on their property, not only for aesthetic reasons, but also the constant flow of traffic that it would bring to the front of their homes. The Royal Architectural Institute of Canada released a report on December 23, 2013, cautioning that, and I quote excerpts from this, group mailboxes will affect the urban landscape and quality of life of Canadians. The impact on streets and green spaces will be significant. The problem of retrofitting these to existing neighborhoods is going to be extremely challenging. There's no information provided to date that shows how this will be done in a way that is acceptable to anyone, end quote. Now, the most adversely affected, we believe, would be seniors and members of the community with disabilities. How are people who have mobility challenges going to access their mail? Seniors are an ever-growing demographic in our society, and many rely heavily upon daily door-to-door mail service to connect them to the rest of the world. This could undermine the ability of seniors and people with disabilities to live independently. Now, letter carriers and mail service couriers are on every street throughout the week visiting our homes and businesses. Frequently, they are asked for directions, for assistance from elderly people. They've reported break-ins and fires. They help find lost pets. They are a friendly and comforting presence in our neighborhoods. These boxes will result in a distancing of the postal worker from the communities that they live and work in. Part of Canada Post's plan is also to eliminate 6,000 to 8,000 jobs across Canada. Many of these would be lost as a direct result of end of home delivery. Some of these jobs would be in our community here in Burnaby. Will municipalities be forced to pick up the additional costs for services such as policing, traffic control, bylaw enforcement, and litter cleanup associated with all of these potential problems? Canada Post should be listening to municipalities and the public at large before entertaining sweeping changes that will result in not only a massive reduction in service, but also an increased burden on municipal budgets. While we recognize that there are changes that have been evolving in the makeup of what constitutes mail, areas such as parcel delivery and direct mail remain a robust part of Canada Post's bottom line. Not everyone has a smartphone or internet connection, and even those that do still use the mail. For that matter, we deliver that smartphone to you. Canada Post also announced that there will be large increases to the price of stamps. This hurts businesses and people on a fixed income. This plan proposes to increase the price of the service that is being reduced, and the higher costs may also drive away customers who use the mail. We do not believe that this is either fair or effective. CUPW has put forward positive alternatives to service cuts and price increases. We hope that the Canadian people will take them into consideration when they are properly consulted. We have proposed that Canada Post follow the example of post offices in the United Kingdom, France, Italy, Switzerland, and many other countries. These post offices have seen significant profits from financial and banking services. Studies have shown that postal banking is a viable option for Canada Post. There are also social and economic benefits that may be achieved through postal banking. The Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives has written a detailed report on this issue, which we've included in the material provided to you today. Over the better part of the past 2 decades, Canada Post has demonstrated not only sustainability, as it is mandated to do by law, but in fact profitability to the tune of over $1.5 billion returned to the Canadian people in taxes and dividends. This is not a crown corporation that has been dependent upon the taxpayer. Our members take great pride in the work that they do, the role that they play in the communities in which they serve, and the significant part they play in providing an accessible and self-sustaining public post office for Canadians. Over the past several years, we've seen a massive investment in new equipment and technology at Canada Post. Well over $1 billion has been invested in this change to our infrastructure, $420 million alone in the Pacific region. A state-of-the-art new mail processing plant has been built by the airport in Richmond and will be opening next week. We have been informed that the cost of this plant alone exceeds $200 million. Canada Post's surprise announcement in December shocked not only the employees who work for the Canadian people, but also the public itself. Our public post office has been an iconic and trusted Canadian institution for well over a century. We feel it is imperative that proper consultation with Canadians be an integral part of major changes to our heritage. We would like to take this opportunity to thank the City of Burnaby for preparing its comprehensive report on the elimination of home delivery service. We would respectfully ask that Council consider a resolution adopting the recommendations that are contained in this report. Now, at this time, I'd like to turn you over to my co-worker, Mr. Andy Henderson, who has a few brief words to say.
Thanks, Kim. As a lifelong resident of Burnaby, a homeowner, and a 27-year letter carrier, I have major concerns with Canada Post's proposed changes. As Kim mentioned, Canada Post did go through a consultation process. Certain people in certain communities were invited to consult. I know I wasn't asked, and neither were my elderly parents, who are also Burnaby residents. Even if they were, what information would they have been given? Would they have been told that Canada Post is bleeding money, while the corporation's own annual reports show that the opposite is true? Would they have been told that mail volumes are disappearing? While referring again to the annual reports, the facts are that in fiscal year 1988-89, arguably the last time in Canadian history when almost no one used the internet to communicate, Canada Post moved 8.2 billion pieces of mail. In fiscal year 2012, with almost everyone using the internet to communicate, Canada Post moved 9.6 billion pieces of mail. My mother and father are in their mid-80s. My mother is starting to have some of the mobility issues that come with age. Why would they want to have a public service that they have enjoyed their entire lives and is not costing them 1 cent taken away? Why would any of us, when presented with the real financial and mail volume numbers, choose to lose door-to-door delivery? I have major concerns with these proposed changes. I am concerned with the lack of true open consultation, with the consistent spinning of numbers used to sell these changes, and with the unmanageability of the changes. But what I find most concerning is that these drastic service cuts are, in fact, unnecessary. Thank you.
Mrs. DeFrancesco.
Good evening. I'd like to thank Burnaby City Council for having us here tonight. As Kim said, my name is Karen DeFrancesco. a proud Burnaby resident. My family has lived in Burnaby for over 35 years. I'm an alumni of Clinton Elementary and Burnaby South Senior Secondary, and spent my post-secondary years at Douglas College, so please don't hold that against me. I'm currently the grievance officer for CUPW Vancouver, but first and foremost, I'm a letter carrier, a job I love, a job I'm very proud of, a job that has afforded me a good living, and I'm able to raise my daughter as a single parent. Letter carriers are the ambassadors of the street, if you will. From helping tourists and guests to our cities with directions, we have aided the elderly who have wandered away from their home, let parents know that toddlers are in the front yard, and alerted homeowners of potential home safety hazards. If CMB community mailboxes were introduced to our cities, this one we would currently have the one-on-one that we currently have with our community would end. How is it going to affect the millions of Canadians that rely on home delivery? The elderly, the differently abled, our neighbors rely on us every day. My father was a small business owner and a homeowner in Burnaby. He built our family home on Rumble Street, and he and my mother both lived there until their passing. It would break his heart to know that the house he was so proud of had a CMB placed right in front of it. I can't imagine any resident wanting these boxes on the easement of their property. Home residents are proud, tax-paying residents, and they do not want this on their property. We are here tonight to express our serious concerns with Canada Post plans that they want to put this on our residents' properties, and we are looking for consultation. That's what the Canadian public deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent presentation, very informative, and my kids went to Burnaby South too.
Yeah.
Don't know if you ran into any of them there, but I wanted to thank you for bringing Burnaby residents to speak to us too. That was nice of the union to take the time to make sure it was Burnaby residents who came and made a presentation to council on this very important issue. And as you know, we're going to be considering a report, and we'll probably bring it forward while your delegation is here to be able to discuss and debate that report. I have a few of the councillors, though, who have questions or may have comments that they want to make. Councillor Volko.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks very much for coming and for the materials you provided. I wasn't even aware of the Architectural Institute of Canada report, and I wasn't even aware of the CCPA's report, and they're both, we could spend all day talking about those. But I want to start off in particular to get clarification, because what I have heard from Canada Post and what I get comments from people when the issue arises, well, what's the big deal on this, is the breakout of home delivery versus where Canada Post says that the majority of Canadians now either are in multiple family units or they get their mail from community mail boxes. And what's your understanding of the breakdown of deliveries?
It's simply not the case. I mean, currently 71% approximately of Canadians get home delivery. Now, a certain percentage of that, I think it was 25% I mentioned, are in apartment blocks, and they would have panels in the lobby. So, I mean, they're still receiving mail to their front door. Rural locations, approximately 12%, they receive it to the end of their driveway. Now, the 34% that are currently, I guess, being addressed by this change are in largely urban centers, established neighborhoods like Burnaby, like Vancouver, and so on, where you have single-family residential that have had door-to-door delivery. So roughly, I think it's just over 5 million or so addresses are affected by that. But the most Canadians get mail to their door in one form or another. So, I mean, I think it's a bit of a misnomer, and it's a bit of a, I don't know, tweaking of the facts, if you will, to suggest otherwise. And I think that that's where the Canada Post report fails.
As I just had a quick opportunity to look at the Architecture Institute's report here, I was wondering if you could expand on, I wasn't aware of this, but it says here that Canada would be the first G8 country to end door-to-door service, and this experiment would receive international attention. I'm sure you're in contact with posties around the world through your organization and that, and have you heard any feedback from people internationally already in regards to the potential of this?
There have been some comments made with respect to other countries, particularly the UK right now, where our former CEO and president went off to head up the post office and privatize it there. I think that, you know, there they've obviously, you know, enjoyed home delivery, and, you know, again, it would be, I think, not a great example to be setting in terms of a G8 country and a strong country. I think a country that has a strong economy, for us to be the first to go down a path that is unnecessary. And I think that's the key element to this, that we have a really strong and successful post office. Why do we want to make these changes to it? Yes, there need to be changes, but why these?
I see. I know there's a number of speakers. I just wanted to. I have a number of questions that I wanted to perhaps close on the issue of the security aspect of this. And I know that in particular in Surrey, Coquitlam, the new developments that are going up, Surrey in particular, I mean, they have CMBs in new developments, which is, as you mentioned, people understand that when they're moving into those areas that this is what they're going to be confronting. I went to the CBC, and they have a community blog which is devoted entirely to this issue, and it's interesting to see the comments from across the country, Your Worship. But I wanted to, on the security matter, just raise one, and it's a woman who writes and says, a community mailbox is like hunters setting up a feeding station to lure prey in. Don't let your granny go for the mail. So, going on that, you had briefly mentioned about the ability of your members getting to know residents on their postal walks, and you know, seniors that are starting to wander for various reasons and all that. But I was wondering if you can just maybe expand a little on the security aspect of it, because part of the things we've sat around this table and other councils over the years, there's a term that comes in for city planning and that, and it's the ability of trying to get more eyes on the street, and that basically is to enhance security. So I can't think of anything more in particular during the daytime and into the late afternoons. You've got a postie that gets to know everybody on the walk, and if someone's not responding at the door or whatever, I was wondering if you could just kind of expand on that.
Well, it's certainly very true. I mean, letter carriers are clocking thousands upon thousands of kilometers every day, walking down each and every street in the municipality. And I mean, that's taking eyes off the street if you introduce these boxes. I mean, they would be delivered, whatever, we don't know the placement, we haven't seen any details, Canada Post hasn't really provided that yet. But every 2, 3, 4 blocks, I mean, you're going to have a box. You're not going to have someone that's walking the street and connecting with the residents that live in those homes. You know, the security aspect, it's a huge concern. It's been in the media a lot, particularly in British Columbia for some reason. There have been, again, I think we just saw a report just came out today from Chilliwack of more break-ins that have occurred there. I did include that one report from CBC in the handout that's provided today, where they referenced the period from 2008 to 2013 with over 4,800 incidents. So, I mean, these things are, you know, obviously a magnet for thieves. I mean, whereas when you would have home delivery in residences that are spread out over however many blocks, a thief is not going to break into 80 homes when they can crack it all in one box, one location, one stop. And, you know, I think that exposes, you know, the people in the, you know, the residents of the city to, you know, potential harm with respect to personal information. I mean, there is some sensitive information, driver's license, passports, credit cards, just financial statements. All of that information is located in those boxes. So I think it's really risky for you know, that to occur.
Well, thanks very much. I appreciate you coming and enlightening us a little more. I know it's early in the process, but I'll be doing what I can in order to support your efforts in order to maintain door-to-door delivery, not only in Burnaby, but right across this country. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor McDonnell.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the presentation. Going through the material on that, I see that Canada Post wants to expand these many postal outfits, offices in these community stores and drug stores and stuff like that. I know we have a little non-profit club that uses a mailbox, and I've gone up a few times, and on numerous occasions I've found the whole panel unlocked. I could access everyone in that section, and there was probably 40 boxes there. And I've raised it with the owners of the store and that, and they said, well, they're just doing the mail. And I said, well, it's funny they're doing the mail. How are they, so I could take it if I want. Oh, no. He said, well, the clerk is busy because there's 20 people trying to get stuff from her. She can't be watching this over on this side. And I actually phoned Canada Post a couple of times on it to complain about it. And they said, well, we'll talk to them about it. But it has happened several times since then too, and so we're going to move ours because it doesn't just sit there for a few minutes. They're slack, so they decide, well, put the mail in. Then they get a rush, and it might be 20 minutes or it might be an hour, and all those are just left open. And it's easy enough you can reach in your own, you can reach in anybody else's. So, I mean, the public should be aware of that this isn't. I mean, it's bad enough with the ones in the street. I mean, nobody's around. But I mean, when you're in a place like this, you think it's secure, but they're not secure. And that. Is there any comparison for the number of community mailboxes in this province compared to the rest of Canada? Have you done something like that?
Unfortunately, we don't have any specific statistics or numbers. Canada Post doesn't provide it to us. And again, in terms of figuring out the exact numbers, I mean, we do know that there are much higher concentrations of them in locations such as Surrey and Langley and, areas that have had a lot of new development over the past couple of decades. So they've been introduced into newly zoned and newly built areas, whereas they haven't been in areas such as Burnaby. Burnaby does not at this point have that many. I mean, relatively speaking to other municipalities in the country, it would be fairly low.
Thank you. Councillor Jordan.
Thanks very much for your presentation, and you, like me, must have been reading our report over the weekend. And there was one thing that I was curious about within our staff's report, and I wonder if you could comment on it, because it was one of those things that made me go, how would that work? And it's the whole idea of, I guess, more than one address and a household, like people with suites and secondary suites and things.
Yeah.
So do they get an extra mailbox? Do they have to pay for an extra mailbox? And then all of the implications of that, right? I wouldn't understand. You know how you deal with that now, but what would happen to that in this kind of a situation?
At this point, we don't know. I mean, actually, I hadn't even thought of that until I read the staff report that you're referring to. Again, but as a letter carrier, I can tell you that, yes, and I mean, I'm very familiar with it. And some homes may have two mailboxes placed next to the door, and the basement suite or what have you, that kind of thing. But as far as I know, there would not be additional boxes. It would be one per address, and that's, as far as we know, that's what Canada Post intends to do.
Having just adopted our secondary suite list, we know there's like more than 5,000 of those in Burnaby. So, that's 5,000 more boxes that would need to be somewhere. And I think the main point is, yes, the issues about the ones that are there already, but trying to retrofit older communities like ours, which is what you discuss and the report discusses. This is not going to work. Who's going to want that in front of their house? It's one thing when you plan a community, a plan that, yes, in this little corner of a cul-de-sac, and it's there when you moved in, as opposed to trying to retrofit whole cities and find a place that's appropriate to put that. According to our staff report, obviously legally, we don't have. Well, we're not sure how much say we have about just how big a box they can put on the street, but they do have the small boxes that are there now, right? But so we would have to question how much more they could put on city property. So that's an issue. And one of my main concerns is things that are legal documents, things as our report registers, like voter notification cards, and the kinds of requirements that we as a city have legally. It's through the post that we meet those legal requirements, and will we still have the same obligations or be able to meet those tests when we move to a different form of delivery? And I don't think the public will be and should be satisfied that meets the test. So I appreciate your continuing, as your leaflet has said for many years, the struggle, and and we hope that this report can add fuel to that fire. Thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Also, thank you for your presentation this evening. I think that the part I find the most interesting is our neighbors to the south still have 6-day delivery. I think it's been 50-something years since we had 6-day delivery in Canada. But seeing that, we have a government that's going into the cutting service, and I think the price of the stamp's going up to $1.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're almost killing themselves right there. Never mind the service cuts. I am curious though. I moved about 5 years ago into a house where they had the box attached to the house versus the slot in the door. And I find myself, I don't check my mailbox because it's kind of the last thing you see when you come in the house. And I'm sure that we're just setting ourselves up for big time theft. Credit cards, passports, all those sort of documents that if people aren't picking them up on a regular basis, and if you're not getting much mail, you're not going to go on a regular basis. Pretty vulnerable.
I think one of the things that we've seen is that when there have been break-ins occurring at these community mailboxes, Canada Post will come out and put kind of a hand-drawn sign on it, advising people to pick up their mail daily. You know, again, it would be, I think, human nature that you know, you're busy, you've got kids to pick up from school, you've got things and errands to run. You may not go there every day, and you know, it may wait 2-3 days. So again, it exposes you to more risk.
Thank you. Good luck in your campaign.
Councillor Calandino.
We've been talking generally about how this affects the public, but I think the report explains that very well, and I want to take a different angle on this than the report says, and it's like this. You know, we've been sold this myth that right of center governments get elected so that they could put the house in order, and that they run on platforms of growing the economy. And we heard this in Ottawa, we hear this in British Columbia, we hear this in Alberta, we hear this in Ontario, we hear this everywhere. What I fail to see is how do we grow the economy by taking away jobs? That's a mystery that I'm not able to solve yet. But if we look at the reality, history shows us that the same right of center governments have increased deficits, they have increased the national debt, and they have not created any new jobs anywhere in all of these areas. And I won't talk about the left of center government, because most of the time they have managed to eliminate deficits in their years of government, but we'll let other people talk about that. What I know is that the Harper government, ever since he has been elected, every single budget they have introduced, they have come down with cutting the public service. And the public service is what Canadians are used to have. And we see this with the libraries that we debated here about a month ago, the fisheries and oceans libraries, I think the Department of Defense libraries, etc. And these are people that they lay off, and now it's the turn of the post office. I don't know what will come next, and I'm asking myself, when will it ever stop? Now, 6,000 to 8,000 people that will lose their jobs in the postal workers union in the next 4 or 5 years. That's a lot of jobs across the country. And I remember in my previous political positions that we used to have reports telling us that every dollar invested generates another $7 in the economy. But I'm sure that the opposite works as well. If you take away a dollar invested, it will also take away $7 of investment. And I'm thinking, if we look at 6,000 to 8,000 jobs of postal workers alone and other thousands of others, if we apply the analogy of 1 to 7, we are looking at tens of thousands of jobs that are eliminated across the country. And these are the people that work in grocery stores, that buy houses, that buy cars, that buy furniture, and it creates this cycle that the more people you lay off in one place, the more jobs get lost in other sectors of the economy. So I'm wondering where the economists are that actually support this kind of theory that if you lay off people, you grow the economy. I don't know if you have any answer to that, but I had to put that out.
You're not including the busy thieves that will be employed in breaking into these boxes.
Yeah, that's forgot about those. Yeah.
Councillor Kang.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you so much for your presentation here, and thank you for letting us know of so many of the great things that the post mail delivery person contribute to our community. And one of the favorite things that my kids and I love doing while I was on mat leave and I was staying home with them is listening to the mail person. What do I address you? Mail person?
Letter carrier.
The letter carrier. And
or posties. Yeah.
But we love waiting for that click of the mailbox, and we would get so excited. We would go check for what surprises there are, and when we open the door a bit too early, well, the posties, the mail carriers would be there smiling, and they would say, "Hi, sweetie, how are you?" And so the years go by as they grow up, and every Christmas time we will wait for a post person to come, and we would have a box of Purdy's chocolate for them. But that was such a joy for the kids to have interactions with our posties and with our mail carriers and with our letter carriers and with our sanitary workers as well. So you are a vital part of our community, and I teach at an elementary school. We have stories of people who you could turn to when you're lost. What do you do? And you are in our stories, and these stories would be history once your job has been eliminated. So I want to thank you for being ambassadors of our streets, being the friendly face, the smile that greet people as they walk, because nowadays we have buds in our ears and we walk with our heads down, but you're not. You're there looking out for people, delivering letters, looking out for other people's safety. So thank you so much for doing your work, and I hope that we will have success advocating for you and getting out the information, having people know more about this issue. So thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
Councillor Valco, did you have something else to add?
No.
I can't let you go with at least telling you one dumb mayor story. My job's very busy, and oftentimes fitting in everything your family needs from you can be really difficult. And I can remember an incident in which I was bouncing around the house trying to get ready for several things, and then I had to go pick up one of the kids from SkyTrain, and I was doing things in the house and running around, and then when I went out to get in my car to go pick them up, I left my door wide open in my house, and I took off and picked up one of the kids and then dropped them off at their next appointment. All of a sudden it dawned on me that I had left my door open, an open invitation to my house for anybody who came by. And I drove back home quickly and arrived at my house and saw my door was closed. And I thought to myself, no, the wind couldn't have done that. It was impossible, and I know I left my door wide open. So what could happen? I walked into the house, walked up to the counter, and there's my mail on the counter in the kitchen. And it was obvious that the letter carrier had come to my house, saw the door was open, walked up the stairs to check if there was anything wrong, in order to let me know that they'd been there, put the mail on the counter, and went out and closed the door. And I can tell you that little opportunity to see someone who went the extra mile just to make sure that everything was all right, and then closed up the door to make sure that your house was secure, was a sign of the little things that letter carriers do in our neighborhood, the things that often are unnoticed or uncommented upon, but the reality of having someone in your neighborhood that you can trust, who cares about the welfare of our citizens, and who takes great pride in their work and their job, and who, like Ms. Francesco says, people of Canada are helping me to make a good living for my family, to live in the community that I love, and I want to be sure that I continually deliver for them in every sense of the word. And so you've got every right to be proud of your job, as my mother was when she was with CUPW and was a shop steward. Is that she took great pride in her colleagues, the work that she did, and in the constant performance of those duties for the citizens all across our country. I think sometimes we forget those people who serve us each and every day until suddenly they're about to be taken away. And in this case, the loss of 6,000 to 8,000 posties is a real shame on the part of this federal government and on the part of the Canada Post Corporation. And I hope citizens step up to the plate. There are too many jobs being lost, too many services being taken away. And in this case, this corporation can lose the fine reputation that it's had worldwide for so many years. And I take no pride as a mayor of a local community to be the only country in the G7 who has deprived people of home mail service. So thank you very much for being here today. And if you'd like to stay, we're just going to deal with your report now. I'll ask council to move to bring it forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor, opposed, and carried.
Your Worship. Oh, sorry.
Someone's got to move the motion for me. This is to outline the city's opposition to the proposal to eliminate home mail delivery service by the federal government and the Canada Post Corporation. Councillor Dhaliwal.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry I was a little quick. I didn't realize. I thought you were calling the question on the recommendation, which I'm going to support, by the way. So, want to thank the staff. This, as the delegation has noticed and remarked, that this is a very comprehensive report, Your Worship, and I'm very happy to see this being circulated to the municipalities, in fact, the other organization locally as well. So all the recommendations are very supportable. I just wanted to also say a couple of things on this, Your Worship. I think it's a real shame that the government decided to do this at the most inappropriate time when there was not even a debate to be held. As soon as the House rose, this was announced 2 days later. They don't have the courage to really face the Canadians where an open discussion could have held in the Parliament. Sooner the Christmas break was announced. Next thing you know, 2 days later, this comes out. But it goes to show this government is vulnerable on this. They didn't have the courage to really face Canadians. I think Canadians need to wake up to the fact that this was done to just basically snow people when everybody's busy with Christmas, then goes through. So you can see the strategy at work. So that was one point I wanted to make, Your Worship. The other one is, of course, when you think about the history of this country, particularly far-fetched, such a big, huge country, it was established in the Pacts of Canada Post in a way, because that was the only way we could communicate. That's the only way that we flourished, by having Canada Post connect Canadians. The way it's being ceremoniously dumped, without any sort of discussion, it just is very, very, I guess in my opinion, concerning way for them to do this. So we need to be opposing this vigorously, that a proper consultation never took place. Perhaps there's some alternative to this. First of all, I even question their forecast of losing billions of dollars 20 years from now. Guess who's making these reports, Your Worship? These reports are coming from the right-wing think tank, which has always criticized any Crown corporation. Doesn't matter whether they're making any money, whether they're bringing any benefits to the community. It's just the ideology at work to not have anything that's corporately, publicly owned. It's always towards some way to encourage a breaking of Crown corporations and to promote privatization of utility services. So this is one more thing that's happening to us, and we need to stand up to that. As it was related earlier, people look forward to receiving their mail through a letter carrier delivery person, because this is something that the report outlines for seniors. It's a very important issue. Who's going to speak for those seniors when we know that there is when we built our homes, when we built our streets, they were based on the fact that the mail was being delivered. And people chose their places of residence because they didn't want less things they had to worry about. And this isn't possible to think that everything one day is going to be done through a digital economy and all tweets, etc. People still need to get a physical parcel documentation and all that, and that's going to be just another thing for people to worry about. When you're a senior, you're worried about getting out of your door, never mind going downhill on a hot summer or rainy day to get there. So I think it's very a sort of heartless thing to do. I was disgusted with the comment of Mr. Chopra, who said that, oh well, he's heard from the seniors, this would be helpful for them because they want to stay healthy, they want to go for a walk. What a meek, a cowardly way to put forward 8,000 people out of jobs. This is what he said. And I just couldn't believe that. The attitude, the arrogance of some of these people who are trying to promote some ideology, trying to then say, well, I'm doing it to do a favor to the seniors who want to go for a walk every morning to look forward to this community meal. So there are many things about this, Your Worship, with the whole strategy of privatizing and jacking up this fee from the postal from 63 cents to 85 cents. Unheard of. Like when previously a half a cent, a cent, or every 2 cents, we're able to carry on. Now we have this. And then soon as this was done, a week later, I'm watching television, sitting there. This is a corporation which is going to go down the tube, doing ads on the news, on the TV to say how good a job they're doing. Be happy. This is great. See us at Air Canada Post. And I couldn't believe that. Just the way they're treating their employees, just the way they're treating Canadians. This is not something that we should just simply let go by, Your Worship. We should support this one, and in fact, Your Worship, if this is appropriate, I would think even this resolution should also be sent directly to FCM. Since we are sending a copy, it should go to the directors as well for their meeting, because this is a national issue. This is communities across the country have already made resolutions to the federal government, and I believe we need to be counted there as well. Right at the board.
That's included in the motion.
Pardon?
That's included in the motion.
It is? It said through the FCM, but I meant directly send copy to FCM as well, because I think this is where they'll get it. They'll also get from UBCM, also from FCM, and I think other cities might be sending them directly. I was thinking, to Your Worship, of the recommendation to Mr. Death goes.
No, it's already being sent to the FCM.
Okay, I didn't catch.
We sent it to everybody in the Western world, actually.
No, I understand that.
So you can feel confident.
Are you suggesting, Your Worship, that the resolution itself is going to FCM? I think the report is going to FCM, but not the resolution.
Well, the resolution's in the report. A resolution, otherwise this would be only offered as an information item, but no one gets to be talked at the board of directors. I would appreciate if this was sent to FCM as a resolution, therefore it will be on the agenda to talk about. Okay. Well, no, item 2. The Council endorsed the resolution for submission to the Lower Mainland Local Government Association, the Union of BC Municipalities, and if you wish to amend, to the FCM.
As well.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Councillor Balco.
Thanks very much, Your Worship.
Who do you want to send it to?
Well, actually, I was
the entire Western world, I was looking to see if we had missed anybody. I don't think we have. I think everybody's getting it. I just wanted to start off by saying I want to thank staff for this, because it was only, I'm thinking, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago that we asked for this report, and this really is a thorough report as to what the issues are, and I think that had the federal government had the opportunity to use our staff, they might not be getting themselves in the jam they currently are. The report speaks about the lack of consultation with public and key stakeholders, and goes through many of the issues that the delegation had brought up. I just wanted to read one thing, because to me the security is a big issue, along with the where to place it and who's responsible for what. But I wanted to read from the CBC report in regards to security, and I want to quote our good friend from next door, the mayor of Coquitlam, Richard Stewart, and he's quoted in the CBC, and he says his city has many super boxes, and Canada Post has a long way to go before people will buy into the promise of privacy and security with community mailbox use. And then he's directly quoted saying, "We have some of our neighborhoods where the community mailbox has been broken into at least once a year for the last decade," Stewart said. He further goes on to say, "We end up," and this should be important to all of us, and all of us around the table and all our citizens here that might be losing home delivery, we end up with people constantly having to go out and change their credit card numbers, change all their bank account numbers, their security systems to avoid identity theft." And it closes with, "Still the corporation continues to insist the super mailboxes are safe." So after the last speaker, I'll just have a motion arising or a question arising, or maybe I can ask a question now in regards to the security issue. In the report, it does speak to it, but I was wondering if specifically we could either get a memo or a further report from our superintendent from the RCMP in regards where he could canvass his colleagues in all the other municipalities in the Lower Mainland that have an RCMP detachment and find out what the experience is. I know that reading the local papers, Surrey is having one hell of a time with community mailbox theft. The RCMP are quite public in their comments in regards to this issue, so I would like to know, so not only we around this table, but also our citizens know what's going on next door with these things. I just wanted to do it anecdotally. I was speaking to my sister-in-law who lives in Bolton, Ontario, and I was asking her what her experience is, because it's a rather new community with a lot of the developments going on, just like Surrey and that. And I said, "What's your experience with them?" "Well," she says, "it's not great. And in the winter it's terrible because the boxes freeze up and sometimes people can't even," mind you, that's Toronto. It was -6 and 2 feet of snow in the area today. But the other is it's not that inconsequential. It's the litter issue. And she says her neighbors get there, they pull out the flyers, and there's trees around this mailbox, and they just put the litter. They just put it right in the tree, which is just as unsightly as anything else. So, I'll leave it to you, or if you want, I'll make a motion in regards to the RCMP for more information. And I'll just close with. Within the report, Canada Post had their 5-point action plan they announced, as Councillor Dhaliwal says, on a Friday just before Christmas. They didn't have the jam to go out and discuss this and consult Canadians in regard. But we have our own, and I'm not going to read through it, but the City of Burnaby has its own 5-point action plan. I hope you've had a chance to read it, and I think it's far more consequential than the nonsense that Canada Post has put out. So, anyways, Your Worship, I'll leave it to your discretion or the clerks as to whether a memo or a report would be the better avenue to go in regards to more information in regards to the security aspect of this.
Well, the report includes that the number and severity of incidents appear to increase in communities with more community mailboxes already in place. It says, for example, over the 5-year period, we identify the city of Surrey is reported to have experienced almost 900 incidents over the same period, while the district of Maple Ridge and the city of Langley and district of Langley are reported to have experienced upwards of 400 incidences. So we're talking incidences of theft of mail or arson or vandalism in the hundreds per year.
And I wonder what the cost impacts are on those communities with the RCMP being tied up, looking after all those various issues directly tied to the mailboxes. So I'll leave it to you and the clerk to discuss whether it's any importance to go a little further on it. But I think it would be interesting to find out what the costs are, because I'm sure they have itemized costs on an annual basis in regards.
I don't know, but there is a CBC investigative report that dealt with this. It might be worthwhile to have a look at. Councillor Calandino.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you know, I sit on one of the seniors groups in Burnaby, the Boys of Burnaby Seniors, and one of their meetings they have expressed a lot of concern about the elimination of the postal delivery. And because I think the group that are most impacted in this sordid idea is basically seniors and those with physical disabilities. Seniors, they can drive up to a certain age, then their license gets taken away around year 80 or so, and obviously then in a situation like this they'll be left with having to go to these mailboxes to retrieve their mail. And if they have younger children in the neighborhood, they may be helped, and if they don't, it may be weeks before they can get to their mail. And talking of the vandalism that takes place, they may not get to their mail. As the CBC report showed, one senior who had lost his mail, his pension check had not arrived because his mailbox had broken in, and he had his bills to pay. But, Your Worship, if I may add a few places to send it to, the seniors group.
We don't have enough stamps.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe they will find out that it's going to cost them more to be able to
We're going to keep those 6,000 to 8,000 employees employed ourselves.
Yeah. I would suggest we send it to the 3 or 4 seniors groups in Burnaby and the presidents of the senior centers with the note that they inform their members of this situation, because I'm sure some of them may not be aware of the impact on them. So if we can add that to number 4. Yeah, no, I'm talking of the Voice of Burnaby Seniors, the senior centers organizations.
All right. So you're asking to amend recommendation 4 to include the
senior centers and the Voice of Burnaby Seniors, and I think there's another couple of seniors groups in Burnaby that the planning department knows who they are.
Well, that won't work as a motion.
Okay. Voice of Burnaby Seniors and the senior centers in Burnaby.
All right. Is there a seconder? They barely squeezed that one out. Are you ready?
Oh, come on now.
Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, opposed, carried. Oh, yeah. All right, and
I'll tell them.
I'll just make a last comment. I would make the last comment is that I think it would be of interest to CUPW to have a look at who's been lobbying our federal government over the last years. You know, the issue of courier companies that are now multinational and extremely powerful, who want to see the end of Canada Post, who are looking to be able to take over that area, are certainly capable of doing significant lobbying in Ottawa. And often I've found in my experience that politicians in the Conservative government in Ottawa are far more likely to listen to business interests than they are either citizens or unions. And so it might be worthwhile to see how companies like FedEx have been doing as far as their lobbying efforts are concerned to look to end door-to-door delivery, because you'll find that many businesses will be looking to an alternative if in fact they can't get to your door. And the alternative is one that's more expensive for the consumer, but one that is obviously subject to a lot of interest from Ottawa and concerns. So I'd take a look at that. The other thing is that businesses should be concerned about this too. I don't know how many pieces of information you get from businesses at your house, but I know that the number of items that come from businesses who want me to know about their products or specials far outnumbers the pieces of mail that I get. And right now, those pieces come to my house and they stay in my house until recycling day. But the truth is, those same items are going to go directly into the recycling basket that we're going to have to keep beside these mailboxes. And those people in business who think they're getting out to the public will not even get a look as a result of these items coming into their mailboxes. Now, this may be helpful to local papers who do, in fact, still have door-to-door delivery, but I know that as far as those using the mail, is that they're not going to be nearly so inclined if they know that these aren't actually getting to anyone's house. So not only is there potential mess on the street, but it's a mess that we're going to have to cope with by having recycling facilities right beside those mailboxes, which adds to the clutter that's going to be occurring on city streets as they retrofit it. So that's another big problem that I think we're going to face in our community, and our staff are worried about where the heck are they going to put them. And as far as us being able to decide where they'll go, we have as much right to stop Canada Post from putting mailboxes wherever they like as we do to stop Kinder Morgan from putting pipelines in our city. And we all know how difficult it is to fight them. So we've got other problems that will occur, and people won't be happy when in fact this comes up in front of their house. And they should be aware. And right now, it's a lottery. You could be the person. So write the MPs and tell them that you do not want to see your postal service taken away. The city stood up on this issue. It's time for citizens to stand up and let our posties know they still support their door-to-door service. Thank you. You ready for the question? All those in favor, opposed, and carried. We've kept you a long time, but thank you very much for being here tonight. Nice for citizens to get to see their council in action.
Thank you.